Hello lovely humans, welcome to this space on the internet. I asked you your questions relating to autism and neurodivergence, neurodiversity as a whole. And because I have so much to talk about with regard to the questions you sent me, I've decided that I'm gonna break them into chunks and do, I think, 3 separate videos, assuming that I have the energy and capacity to actually film 3 full videos. This video is going to be addressing the connection between autism and queer identities, in particular the ones that I am, such as asexual, aromantic, genderfluid, non-binary. And that's mostly because the questions regarding the intersection of those 2 things are from people who watch my content who also share those identities. So that's the focus of this video. Let's get straight into it. Hi Spacey Aces, I have a bestie that is autistic. She's a trans, male to female, non-binary, genderfluid, intersex, and I know she likes me and I like her too, but she gets lost in her brain a lot. So my question is, do autistic people get confused on their sexuality, and are they more likely to have relationship struggles? In brief, possibly, probably. In full, autistic people are more likely to be not straight, and in that way are probably more likely to question their sexuality. And with regard to the confusion, I think that this can result from the interaction of social disability and communicative disability inherent to autism, mixed in with the sensory issues, especially that of interoception, where you can sense what's happening in your body. And this also comes hand in hand with alexithymia, which is not being able to put your feelings into words, and furthermore not being able to recognize or respond to your feelings, especially not in a way that is appropriate. Which is the reason why a lot of autistic people can get very dysregulated, is because they, first of all, might not be able to accurately sense and respond to their needs, and then even if they can sense their needs and even respond to them, they don't necessarily have the communicative ability to get people to help them to do that. I'm saying them. I'm talking about myself as well. So when it comes to being confused about your sexuality, I can see how that would be more likely amongst autistic people, because you might not be able to get an accurate picture of your feelings at all. And then you might not be able to relate physiological and emotional responses in the correct way. They might get crisscrossed and confused. And then there's also the social aspect of understanding the mechanisms of relationships and being able to work within them. That can be really difficult and very confusing and just a lot to unpack. So you might indeed be confused about your sexuality for reasons relating to your autism. Some people aren't at all, but some people are. And on that note, are we more likely to have relationship struggles? I would say the same thing. It comes down to the communication differences, and literally part of being diagnosed with autism is the recognition that you struggle to create or maintain relationships, and for that reason can end up without many friendships, or in the case of some people who are maybe high masking, you can end up with relationships that aren't actually fulfilling for anyone involved. And for low masking individuals, it may be hard to make friends at all because there's just this major communication barrier. So yes, I would say that autistic people are probably more likely to be confused about their sexuality and to have relationship struggles, the latter of which is actually almost a guarantee. Have you heard the term Audi-aro/Audi-ace, and what do you think about it? I hadn't specifically heard it before, but I can extrapolate from what I know about the term Audi-gender, and then I looked it up as well. I think it's pretty genius in some ways, because yeah, I know in my experience my aromanticism and asexuality are inherently intertwined with being autistic and are inherently related to the types of communication issues I described before, and autism being a developmental disorder, kind of a different sense of identity almost. In my experience, it feels like because of communication struggles and just struggles assimilating into the world that the development of my identity is different, and the way I can connect with people is different, and the way I feel about things is different, and the way I can understand my experience of different feelings is different. And it's just all these different things that are associated with the autistic diagnosis/identity/disability as a whole that make up, in part at least, my aromantic and asexual identities as well. So yes, I think they're cool. I personally wouldn't specifically use the terms Audi-aro and Audi-ace Not because I have anything against them, like, and it's not hard to extrapolate what they're about if you know, like, Audi is a shorthand for autism and Aro and Ace already. But I think it's just more helpful for me to not have them be in the same word, I guess. I can say I'm autistic, I'm Aro, and I'm Ace. Boom. Similarly, this person asks, how does your autism affect your Ace/Aro identity? Or do you see it as completely unrelated? I'm autistic and on the Ace spectrum, but I don't know if they are related or not. For many people, they are. Some people distinctly say that they are not, which is also understandable. They can definitely be entirely different entities and segments of your identity. In my case, and I think the case of probably more people than not, they are related, especially since I'm pretty sure it's been studied that a significantly higher prevalence of Ace people are autistic and vice versa. I'm pretty sure that's a thing. Don't cite me on it. Maybe if I find it, I'll put the findings here. We don't know the relationship or the causal situation, but that's because you can't, because it's just a human experience. But autistic people are more likely to be queer, and queer people are more likely to be autistic, and I think it's an even higher concentration of either or within aromantic, asexual, agender, and autistic communities. Can you talk about autism and asexuality microaggressions? At first I didn't know what I was going to say about this. Like, I was like, oh, I haven't really thought about microaggressions. But then I thought about all the things I've written and filmed before in videos about asexuality regarding like infantilization and pathologization of asexual people. And I was like, that's inherently intertwined with the experience of being overly pathologized in some cases, but more often infantilized as an autistic person. And then when you put the two together, I can see how it would follow that microaggressions related to autism and asexuality would have to do with assuming that, for example, an autistic person cannot distinguish and hold their own identity, and that if it's an asexual identity, that's childish or immature or naive, or somehow related to the perceived inability of an autistic person to self-identify what they feel and who they are, which is sucky. Don't do that. That's ableist and aphobic, because adults and even children, autistic or not, can self-identify, and just because their identity is an asexual one doesn't indicate anything childish about them. Microaggressions could include the denial of a possible suspicion that they could be autistic because they're already asexual, and the intersection of these communities is just oftentimes looked down upon in many ways, especially relating to the idea that we're incapable, immature, or unknowledgeable, or too innocent, or like general infantilization within statements or ideas about who we are. Okay, so that's our video about queerness and autism, and stay tuned for the next one, which I believe will be about diagnosis. Until then, farewell lovely humans, and we'll see you next time in this space on the internet.